As you may or may not know, my wife and I just got back from Vegas. It was a great trip. We ate, we drank, we had a blast. But then we got home and looked at the credit card, and I gotta say, it doesn't matter how much fun you're having, $25 for a drink is a ripoff. Frickin' Vegas. I hate getting ripped off, and so do the lads over at Harry's. They spent years watching the razor blade companies rip people off and said, no more. Not all heroes wear capes, my friends, and they want to prove that they're legit by offering you hot dogs a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/RTG. I've been telling you about them for months, and I'm genuinely proud to have Harry's as a sponsor of this show. I wasn't kidding. The plastic, futuristic-looking crap razors you get at the store are overpriced and they're poor quality. Harry's blades are crisp, clean, and classy. They're the kind of razor you'd expect your grandpa to have on his bathroom counter. And most importantly, they work. Shave after shave, they're so smooth, they're precise. I used to go through the crappy store blades all the time, but Harry's are built to last. And they're not just better quality than the other names, they're more affordable. And they deliver. Just set your schedule, and for as little as $2, new blades, shaving creams, lotions, everything you need, right to your door when you need it. I genuinely cannot think of a reason not to try Harry's. And I'm not just saying this because they're sponsors. They're the best shaving supplies I've ever used. Try them out, and if you're not happy, your shave's on them. And unlike the other subscriptions, they're really easy to cancel if you want to too, which is a nice bonus, but believe me, you're not going to want to cancel. Getting ripped off isn't funny. Switch to Harry's. Get started with a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/RTG. That's harrys.com/RTG for a $3 trial set. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Remember the Game. It is my retro gaming podcast where every single week a buddy of mine and I sit down and geek out about the games we played back in the day, except for last week, I guess, but almost every single week. My name is Adam Blank. Thank you guys so much for listening. This week, it is episode 78. I wanted to start the new year with a bang and go with a game that I know a lot of people are excited about. The Facebook mentions and stuff have been off the charts since I posted the hint, and that is Perfect Dark for the Nintendo 64, which for my money is very overlooked and a little bit underrated, quite frankly, because it's GoldenEye's little sister. But we'll get more into that in a few minutes. I'm going to ramble first before I even... if you want to skip all of this, including the holiday wishes and all that good stuff, look in the description box. There's a timestamp to tell you what to skip to if you just want to listen to me talk about video games. But hang around and get some good wishes, you guys. As I record this, it is about 2 o'clock Mountain Time, December 31st, 2019. And once I'm done it, I'm going to go get ready to go to my New Year festivities. I have a couple of comedy shows tonight at one of the clubs here in Edmonton. As you listen to this, you're in the future. It's 2020. At some point, maybe it's the 1st, maybe it's the 5th, maybe it's fucking June because you just discovered the show. For whatever time of the year it is, thank you so much for listening. And I hope you had a great New Year and Christmas if you do that, or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or Festivus or any other thing you celebrate. And if you didn't celebrate anything, then I hope you just spent a week or two playing video games and eating good food and hanging out with your friends and your family, which is exactly what I fucking did. And I did a lot of comedy, but you don't care about that. I missed this podcast. I'll be honest with you guys. Like I didn't forget. Like last week, Wednesday itself was Christmas, and I didn't really think about the show. I spent Christmas Eve and Christmas Day at my mom and dad's place with my brother and his girlfriend, and then my girlfriend came out and we did the gifts and ate lots of food. My dad and I drank a lot of fucking whiskey, like too much whiskey, frankly. But I didn't miss it then. But then I'll be honest with you, like by Thursday or Friday, it felt like something was weird because I've gotten so used to doing the show, recording it on Tuesday, editing Tuesday, uploading Wednesday. I missed it. But anyway, we're back now. I don't see us missing another episode anytime soon. So I hope you had a great holiday, and let's get into talking about the gaming. Normally I would plug the Patreon here. I'm going to do it really, really fast just to say if you want to get in on the prize draw for January, you've got till about January 3rd. I always give it a couple of days into the new month in case somebody waits till after the first rollover to sign up. So it's patreon.com/rememberthegame. You're going to get bonus episodes of the show. There's a dozen of them over there waiting for you. Plus you'll get a shout out, which I'll be doing next week on the show. Plus you'll be getting entered into a prize draw to give away 25% of our Patreon. So please sign up. The next thing I wanted to ask you, because I had a couple of housekeeping notes before I get into video games. Wrestling with Wrestling, my wrestling podcast that I've been talking about on here forever, will be launching this Friday. I'm still not 100% sure what I'm going to do with it. I'll be honest with you, as late as like a day ago, I was tempted to come on here and be like, yo, I'm going to not do it. I'm a little concerned about the time it's going to take because I'm already kind of up against the clock with a lot of this stuff, but I really am excited about the concept of the show, and I'm going to give it a shot, and we're going to see. My plan is to launch Patreon episodes, at least one a month to go with Wrestling. I don't know if you're going to get one this month or not. I'm on the road. I literally have not a full weekend off until the middle of April right now for comedy, and my plan is to put episodes out on Fridays. So we'll see. I'm going to kind of test the waters, figure out the format, figure out if anyone's interested in stuff like that. But you will get an episode of it this Friday, January 3rd. Episode 1 is going to be 5 realistic ways I would improve the WWE. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm excited about giving it a shot. I know a lot of people have reached out saying they're excited about listening to it. So Wrestling with Wrestling, it'll be on everything beginning this Friday, and we'll see where that goes. What else did I want to talk about? I already mentioned the shout out. Oh yeah. Did you make any New Year's resolutions? Because I did make one, and I very rarely do that because I think I'm not going to say they're stupid. Improve yourself anytime you can. I just never stick with them. But one of the things that I have resolved to do in 2020 is kind of cut back on social media because I fucking hate it. Like I kind of need to be on there between the podcasts and comedy. Like my job is a lot of self-promotion and stuff. It's just so goddamn negative, and there's just so much crap, and I hate it all so much. So I've actually deleted all the apps off my phone so that I can only get on them when I'm on my computer or on my iPad instead of just having that little fucking drug box in my pocket that I pull out and look at every 30 seconds. And I'll be honest with you, my favorite interactions I have on social media are with the listeners of this show. It's just people talking video games. So I'm actually going to try to semi-step up my social media game when it comes to the Remember the Game feeds, talking about what I'm playing and my thoughts on news and stuff like that. And I'm really going to try to pull back on my personal social media because it's just everyone I really want to talk to had, like, no offense to you because I know not all of you have my phone number, but everyone I really want to talk to is either following me on social media for the show or has my cell phone number. You know what I mean? Like I don't need to be on fucking Twitter at 11:30 at night arguing with somebody about the Oilers or fucking taxes or the government or anything. I just don't care. I don't fucking care anymore. So at Member the Game on on Twitter and Instagram. It's like remember but without the RE because somebody fucking took those and doesn't use them. So at Member the Game, Facebook.com/Remember the Game. I'm going to make a conscious effort to try to be a little bit more active on there in the new year and help grow the show. Good enough. Let's talk to video games and then we'll get to talking Perfect Dark. Thank you so much for the cool feedback on my Games of the Decade list. That was on the Patreon exclusive episode near the end of December there. I listed my top 10 games of the decade and then 10 honorable mentions as well. And a few of you reached out with your game of the decade list. I'm still interested in them. Hit me on Twitter, Instagram, whatever. I'll share them and stuff like that. I want to know what your games of the decade were. The only thing I think is going to change on that list that I put out, I'm not going to redo the whole list or anything, but I've been playing through Gears of War 5 on my Xbox One, which I'll get into more of in a second, and it is fucking really good. Like it's going to be somewhere in that top 20, I think, unless it falls apart in the next few hours of the campaign. But I'm really fucking enjoying it. So, plus I still plan on grabbing a PS4 in the new year in time to play Final Fantasy VII Remake and Last of Us 2. And so there's a chance that one of them end up there because technically it's still the decade. But one of the things I thought about, and I was going to talk about it on the Patreon episode this week, and I didn't, or a couple weeks ago, and I didn't because I ran out of time. Like, are video games a waste of time? And I think about this a lot. And listen, like, I don't want anyone hanging up or turning off the podcast and be like, fuck this guy, he's going against all of us, because that's not it. I love video games. But I got my Nintendo Switch stats from Nintendo for how much I use my Switch this year. And it says that I played Switch for like 28 days of the year, like 28 full days. And I know there's time where I've just left it and walked away from it. And I know that my nephew plays with it when he's at my house and stuff like that. But like, I played a lot of video games this year, and I'm like, nobody, like, I flip flop on it. And if it's a waste of time or if I'm not wasting my time, because like, if you told someone you spent 28 days of your year just reading, nobody would care. They'd be like, oh, you're improving your mind. And tons of people probably watch that much TV, but you can't see the stats, right? But because I spend it playing video games, the stats show up. And I've really struggled with it. Like, I'm not going to stop playing video games. I'm not even going to try to cut back on how many video games I play, because it's just my favorite thing to do with my downtime. But I don't know. I'm just curious what you like. Are they a waste of time? Like, I'm 36. Like, when I'm 50, will I still be playing video games like this? And if so, like, will that be a waste of my time? Like, I don't know what the fuck else people do. I've legitimately thought that. Like, what the fuck do you do with your time if you don't play video games when you have downtime? Like, and I'm not saying like, you know, of course you got your job and your family and maybe you exercise and your other hobbies. But I just like, what the fuck? Like, when I'm sitting at home, like when I get home from my comedy shows at night and it's 9:30, 10 o'clock and I still have a couple hours before I go to bed and my girlfriend and my dog are already asleep. That's what I don't even think twice about it. I'm like, well, I'm going to go play some video games. That's just what I do. So are they a waste of time? I don't know. I don't really care. To me, like, the only real waste of time is spending it doing something you don't want to do, you know? And I love playing video games, so if that's a waste of time, then I guess I'm wasting my time. Fuck off. And with that said, let's get into this, because it's going to be a long week, a long list. What have I been playing? What have I been wasting my time on over the last couple of weeks? I have been playing a lot. I've had a lot of comedy shows the last week and a half, or 2 weeks or so since we put one of these out. I've had a ton of comedy shows, but they've mostly been in Edmonton, which is rad because I can I'm at home all day and then I go to the shows at night. So I'm going to get into the list of stuff that I've been playing and then we'll talk Perfect Dark. First and foremost, Shovel Knight, the King of Cards campaign they added to it. So it's basically just Shovel Knight. There's 4 campaigns now. You can buy the Shovel Knight Treasure Trove. It's on everything. It's reasonably priced. Then you get to play through as Shovel Knight and then as 3 of the bad guys that you fight as Shovel Knight, which are, I believe it's Plague Knight, Spectre Knight, and King Knight. All 3 of them have different move sets. They all have different mechanics, but they're all just those 8/16-bit platforming adventures with collectibles and stuff. There's a Patreon episode. I might even do one as early as January and just do it alone and just talk about this game. I love these games so much, and I can't stress it, you guys. There's so much meat on the bone. If you're looking for a retro style platformer with some challenge, Shovel Knight. They're so good. And if you're not sold, I'll explain it more on the Patreon episode that's going to be upcoming. But Shovel Knight, so I finished that. It was fucking great. I finished Shadow of the Tomb Raider on Xbox One. I liked it. I started out loving it, and by the end of the game, I liked it. I do think it's the weakest of the 3 modern Tomb Raider games. But having said that, I feel like those games are like pizza, where even when they're bad, they're good. It's just, it was so many collectibles to go back to, that's just become that, like, the format of most of these games. It's like a big open map, and then you look at the map and it's just cluttered with little icons to go collect. Like, then half the time you go collect them and you don't even read the little write-up about like what this artifact is or what the fuck it does. When it was like in the exploration of like climbing through tombs, I guess. Climbing through tombs and climbing mountains and going through the jungle and stuff. It was fucking rad. When it got to the collectibles, and frankly, the story I thought were kind of boring. But I'd highly recommend the Tomb Raider games. If you're into like the Uncharted's or any of those style of game, all 3 of the Tomb Raiders are worth your time, particularly the first 2, which are, I think it's just called Tomb Raider and then Rise of the Tomb Raider, but they're really good. I played Untitled Goose Game. And I put out a pretty controversial take about it on Twitter. I get why everybody loves it. I fucking see it. I get the puzzle mechanics of it. It is funny. It's charming. I'm a huge indie game guy. I gotta be honest though, it didn't. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I just got Game Pass on my Xbox and I had tons of stuff I want to play. But I just was like, after about an hour of fucking with that gardener and then getting to the second level where there's a kid that's scared of you with glasses, I was like, all right, the novelty's gone now. I feel like other games have done it better, frankly, and been funnier. But I get it. So I tried it. For anyone that's been asking about it, I have tried it. If you're into like funny puzzle games, I'd still recommend it. It's funny. I don't know if it's worth like $30 or whatever the fuck it is to buy on other shops, but if you have an Xbox, it's on Game Pass. Give it a shot. It's funny. I could see playing it with like little kids or something. It'd be fucking hilarious. Like I've seen videos on Reddit and stuff of little kids playing Untitled Goose Game and not even trying to beat it, just running after the other characters with this goose and making them hawk and shit, and fucking hilarious. So played that. I've been playing Yooka-Laylee and The Impossible Lair on my Switch. It's good. It's not great. I've seen so I never played the original Yooka-Laylee that they were like hyping up as like the spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie, but I know that a majority of people kind of came down on it. They set the bar pretty high comparing it to Banjo-Kazooie though. This one is more of a 2D side-scrolling game that people have been comparing to Tropical Freeze. And so that got my attention because I adore Tropical Freeze. So I downloaded it. I've played a few hours of it. It's not awful, but it's not Tropical Freeze. Like fucking come on. Come on. Like it feels like a President's Choice. I guess I don't know if everyone in the world has President's Choice. It's like a knockoff, no-name, cheap version of Donkey Kong Country. It's okay. I'd rather play Donkey Kong Country or Shovel Knight or Celeste or fucking any of those other games, but it's all right. I've been playing Resident Evil 2 on my PlayStation Classic. I'm going to save most of my thoughts for an episode of the show, but pretty fucking good so far. I've never played Resident Evil 2. I really want to play the remake, and I wanted to get through the original first. Pretty fucking good. That's all I'll say so far. And then again, as I mentioned, I've been playing Gears of War 5 on my Xbox One, and I'm loving it. I'm a pretty big Gears fan. And they're so familiar, like the mechanics of it, like the hide behind walls shooting, the active reloading. It's like an old friend. Every time I fire one up, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember why I fucking love this series so much. Gears of War is the shit. So I'm playing Gears 5. So that's everything I've been playing. Maybe I do play too many video games. I don't know. Maybe I do. But that's what I've been playing recently. Let's talk about what we played back in the day. That's why you guys are here, and that is what we're talking about this week, episode 78. We're talking Perfect Dark by Rare on the Nintendo 64. And like I mentioned, I feel like it gets overlooked occasionally because it's, everyone talks GoldenEye. I don't know if everybody talks Perfect Dark. I think the people that played it talk about it. I just don't know if everybody played it. It's a great game. It's on Xbox. I originally played it for the first time on my 360 before I ever really got into the Nintendo 64 version, which to me is the better way to play because you don't have to use that fucked up controller. But I'll tell you more about that in a second. I'm going to cue some music. I missed this. David Ray is back this week. He is my guest. We are talking Perfect Dark, which originally released on the Nintendo 64 on May 22nd of 2000. So that's 20 years ago now because it's 2020. Happy New Year, you guys. Welcome back to the show. Enjoy this week's episode. Kick back, relax. Let's talk Perfect Dark. Here we go. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Everyone that listens to this podcast knows about our illustrious CEO, my dog Molly. But the other silent partner behind the scenes is my wife. And let me tell you, my friends, a 17-year relationship with another person that has to talk to and live with you is a lot harder to maintain than one with a dog. We've had our ups and downs, and as you all know, a relationship isn't all sunshine and rainbows. They can be a lot of work. You get out what you put in when it comes to relationships, and talking to a therapist can be a fantastic way to put in some work. They can help you work through your issues, learn to communicate better, and even just provide you with an ear to bend when you need it. I've talked to my therapist about my relationships, especially when it came to my stand-up comedy career and how much I was away from home, and they helped me work on ways to keep my relationship strong even when I was out on the road. it turned out our relationship was actually better when I was out on the road, but that's a story for another day. And I know, right? Therapy. Who has the time these days? BetterHelp hears you, and they're making it easy. Fill out a quick form online, and they'll match you up with a therapist that suits your needs and that'll work around your schedule. You pick the meet times, and you can get your therapy fix from anywhere, over video, phone, or just chat. Become your own soulmate, whether you're looking for one or not. Visit BetterHelp.com/rememberthegame today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/rememberthegame. So yeah, this is probably one of the bigger games that we haven't covered on the show yet. And it's funny because like I think when most people think of shooters on the 64, they think of Goldeneye.
Yeah,
right?
That's usually the discussion point, which is, even though I would argue Perfect Dark is better.
Oh, like literally with the exception of not having the Goldeneye IP in it, like the James Bond IP, I think it does literally everything better. It's just that like I know I didn't play this one a lot until it came out on Xbox. It came to Xbox 360 years ago as like the port of it.
Yeah,
and that was when I really played it. I barely played it on the 64.
I don't think it was a port though. It was the next.
No, there was a crappy new game, but then they did port this one to like Xbox Arcade. It was like $10 or something. Okay, yeah, it was like that one. But like, and that's where I played it. Yeah. And I was even reading about it this morning, and they were like, "That's probably the definitive way to play it because that's the version that's on Rare Replay on the Xbox One as well." Because on the Nintendo 64 version, they were like, "There's like if you try to go back and play it now, like when was the last time you played this on the Nintendo 64?"
It was on the 64.
So it's been a while.
Yeah,
they're like it's got ridiculous like slowdown at points and stuff because like I mean it needed the expansion pack, right? Like it was one of those games that like it pushed the 64 right to the brink.
Yeah.
And I do remember playing it, and I don't remember running into serious problems with like lag and stuff.
Yeah.
But like everything I've read about it in the last day or so, getting ready for the show, they're like it's like the more modern versions of it are obviously the systems are more powerful, they can keep up, but they're like that Nintendo 64 one, they're like you get some pretty heavy slowdown at times.
Yeah.
So
because as soon as they add more characters in there and all that stuff, and because there's a few rushes that happen. That is true. I can recall a few, especially when it was like the levels with the dinosaur lizard things.
Yeah. So I was gonna ask you this, like, because I've finished this game, like the campaign. I assume you finished it back in the day. Like and like when I finished it, I literally finished it probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, like on Xbox, like on the arcade, and I don't understand the story entirely. I know there's like two groups of aliens
that are fighting,
and
like
you're
the
helping
Greys
one,
and like the reptilian,
Right. So one of them is like the standard alien, like the like, dude. When aliens, because do you like we won't get on a tirade. Like, do you believe in aliens?
Something. I believe that there's the likelihood that there's other intelligent life out there is likely. Whether it's like advanced, that's a different question.
Agreed.
I don't think they'd be necessarily super far advanced.
Sure, okay. I feel like there's just as good of chance that there's something out there super advanced as there is that there's like bacteria that's never done anything. But I'm like, you will never convince me there's not something else in this massive universe beside us. Like, I'm not that egotistical to be like, we're the only thing. Yeah. But this isn't, I don't want to get into that because someone listening to this right now is like, what are you talking about? Aliens don't exist. Yeah, or they do exist. I don't want to do it. But like,
the simple answer is no one knows.
No one knows. But like for some reason,
it's possible, but it's not likely.
Right. But for some reason, we as a species have decided that this is what aliens look like. They're these tall, skinny, gray things with giant heads and black eyes.
They look vaguely humanoid.
Right. Yeah, and that's just what we've just decided. And so the war in this game is like it's between those aliens and then these weird lizard looking things, and they're the ones that can look like humans.
Yes, yes, that's right.
Okay, and then you control the girl. I don't remember her. Joanna Dark.
Yes, that's correct.
And I didn't know this. Apparently, they call her Perfect Dark because she had like perfect scores in training.
Yeah,
I didn't. I don't remember that. And you control her, and then I mean, if you know more of the story, feel free. All I remember is you kill lots of stuff and work for this corporation, and you're between the aliens, and you end up working with one of the gray ones, I think.
Yeah, and you're helping them out, and eventually at the end, the Greys go home, and everything's safe.
Okay, good. Yeah, like it's so like, and to me, that's one of the cool things about this game, because if this game came out today, like if you just up the graphics, up the gameplay, everything, and just put it out today, I think people would kind of crap on the weird story, because they'd be like, what the fuck is going on here? You know what I mean?
The story's not great.
No, and stories have become such a big part of gaming, right? But like back in like 2000, when this game came out, like aside from Metal Gear Solid and RPGs, it was more about like, is it fun to play? Like if it's fun and I'm dealing with aliens and shooting stuff, cool. Like I don't care if the story's super...
Yeah, because I would even say that to compare it to its the logical one, like Goldeneye,
right?
There is a story there because it's following the movie, but it's kind of like it's thinly there, Like you read the profile, the file and all that, but that's not really why you're playing the level.
No, same, yeah.
Like it's not integral to like what's going on and why you're playing it.
I agree with that. Like it like Goldeneye is funny because I don't think I've ever seen that movie.
Yeah,
like Goldeneye. I don't think I've ever seen the James Bond. I haven't seen like any movies, but I remember playing it, not really understanding what I was doing, just knowing like, okay, so I have to get from here to there, and on my way there, I have to shut down this computer and find 4 files or whatever it is. You know what I mean? And I don't.
And well, I mean, they took a lot of liberties in that because there's like stuff like Bond never went to the satellite thing, and there's like 3-4 levels in that satellite area.
Oh, that's just that. You know what that is? That's classic movie video game where they're like, "Yo, there's not enough levels from this movie. Let's squish some stuff in there to make this long." But what's fascinating to me with Perfect Dark is like everyone loved Goldeneye, so it makes complete sense for Rare to be like, "Hey, well, we're making another first-person shooter because we nailed the first." Like, I think most people would agree that. I mean, PC. You fucking PC master racers, PC people aside, like we won't get into that, but like for home console, I mean, Goldeneye was an evolution. Like Goldeneye did something that no one had managed to do that well yet.
Yeah, like especially on a console. Yeah. Like the fact that you can kind of like look around and aim and started adapting that kind of thing.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't until. It had its limitations in that you only had the one joystick, which kind of hurt it.
Yeah.
Because you really do need that difference of movement and looking.
Buddy. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's kind of like, oh, let me pause. Like, let me hit the other button that makes me stop in my tracks and to aim. It's like, well.
And that's where, like, I mean, Goldeneye and Perfect Dark. Like, I mean, like I said, I played this on the 360, and it was fine because they tweaked the controls where instead of using the C buttons, you had a dual analog. And they were like, and I never even knew this game without the dual analog, but they're like, it's an infinitely better way to play. You try to go back and play a Goldeneye or a Perfect Dark now on the Nintendo 64 with that weird controller, and I think you would be like, what the fuck? Like, how do you do this?
You really have to. Well, they did give you like kind of an auto aim, like it did kind of like help like aim to the person you're close to. But yeah, it's nothing the same.
No, these ones are like much again. Like I feel bad for how often I say it, but that Nintendo 64 PS1 era. I feel like more of that can be left in the past and can be brought up today. Like I'm good. Like it was like I like the memories. You know what I mean? Like they're weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what I was going to say with Rare. They were like, well, we obviously have to make another one of these games. But what I find very fascinating, and I don't know the details behind it, and I mean, it's not that I don't care, but I'm not going to look it up. They didn't go back to the GoldenEye, like the James Bond world and licensing. They were like, we're just going to create our own world.
I don't think they could secure it.
Maybe,
I think it was something in that regard, and then they were just like, well, we got this engine,
the killer engine,
and we're going to make it now. And what I do remember is Joanna Dark, the person who voices it, is just like some random person from their office that they.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They're just like, well, I guess now that we don't have to worry about James Bond, we can do this, and like, it kind of like opened up the.
I like that.
Yeah.
It would be funny as if they were near the end and they're like, okay, we got to get audio captured, and they're like, how much money's left in the budget? And they brought it up, and they're like $14.67, and then like Joanna from accounting was walking by, and they were like, hey Joanna, come here.
You just got in here.
Say this. Like, they were like, good. That's a cool story. I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, because that's also 64 would be the first time that you can even kind of have audio.
Yeah,
And like,
that's true.
The idea that you'd even have like voice at all is kind of amazing. People weren't thinking like, why aren't you getting like, Willem Dafoe in here to do a voice, like
Troy Baker. Like now there's like guys that have made a living doing video game voiceovers. But back then it was we just need to find
novelty
somebody.
is the fact that it's happening. Like,
you
have voice.
So one of the things that fascinates me about this is like they don't have the James Bond license, and like I know I personally like I never owned this game as a kid.
Yeah.
I remember like my friend renting it and playing it a few times. It was cool, but I was like, because they can't use James Bond in the marketing, there's no like, hey, this is like the sequel to Goldeneye or the what's the word I'm looking for, the like the spiritual successor to Goldeneye. They were like, we're the company that made Goldeneye, now we're making another shooting game. You know what I mean? And I don't remember ever even seeing them mention that like in advertising. It was just like, here's the shooting game. You know what I mean? Maybe they did.
I think at that time Rare had a lot more stock, and it's kind of like brand recognition, which doesn't necessarily happen anymore. Because at that era, it was around Donkey Kong, and it was Goldeneye, and like they really did well in that that 64 3D era.
Rare was a heavyweight.
So like the fact that they didn't need to like reference back to Goldeneye, they can just say we're Rare.
I guess so. Yeah, you're right. You're right. So like I know this game didn't sell as well as Goldeneye, but it also came out closer to the end of the 64, and you needed the expansion pack, and not everybody had any. Like we didn't have an expansion pack, like
So you didn't play Majora's Mask?
You know what? I played Majora's Mask finally on the 3DS once the 3D version came out, and
because that was the other game you needed it for.
And there's Donkey Kong 64 I think had it too. I think
that could be. That
doesn't matter. Yeah. It was like the first like I mean today like you can buy like there's fucking 40 3DSs out there, and like you can get a PlayStation or 4 or a PlayStation 4 Pro, and there's the Xbox, and then like the 8,000 more advanced Xboxes. This was kind of like the first one where they were just like, hey, you want
first one in North America,
right? Yeah, exactly.
Actually, you know what? I take that back. Well, first one for Nintendo.
Yeah, that's okay, because I was going to go there too.
Sega CD. And
this was the first one that kind of worked because Sega tried it with like 8 things. Yeah. They built that Tower of Horrors on the Genesis, and it was just like, well, you need a Sega CD and a 32X and 4 6-button controllers, and you could play this game. And you're like,
and then if you also put like Sonic and Knuckles into the 32, and then you could have like
literally Mount Everest of Sega. But with this, like, this fascinates me because, like, you have to imagine there were parents that bought this game and then found out they couldn't play it because they didn't have an expansion pack, and like that's a ballsy thing, you know.
I think they were pretty clear on that you need it on the box, although parents often just like
they don't know what that is.
They don't read what's on there.
It's December 23rd. And you're like, I gotta get what's the kid want for Christmas? Perfect Dark. So you go to the store and you buy Perfect Dark. And you're like, okay, perfect. You know, it doesn't work. But they really like. I do remember this, and I remember this from playing it on the 360 and stuff like that. Rare really like they were like, what is the absolute maximum we can get out of the Nintendo 64? And let's do it. Like this game might push the 64 as far as any game did on that console.
Absolutely. It was really neat because I know for myself. I didn't have like other controllers, and like the only way I play multiplayer on Goldeneye, let's say, is like going over to a friend's place. Mm-hmm. And one of the neat things about Perfect Dark is they introduced the idea of bots.
Yeah, man.
And bots with like different personalities.
Like that you could tweak the AI of the computer bots you put into your multiplayer games. Was like. What? Yeah. Like that was unheard of back then, right? And so you're right. Like Goldeneye, it was 1 to 4 players, you and your friends. That was it. Mm-hmm. This one, like I think you could get up to 12, like not 12 humans, but you could have 8 or 12 bots, like participants, 1 to 4 humans, and then a bunch of bot players, and you could decide how the bots played and stuff. Like, and again, like I think Rare deserves. an absolute. I mean, they've gotten their credit for this game because of the reviews and the prestige that this title carries. But like, they could have just taken GoldenEye, dropped their new IPs, like skins on it, and been like, here's another shooting game, and they really went all out with it.
Yeah, they really improved a lot of things about it, like, because the thing I liked about were all the weapons that had like a secondary function.
Yeah.
So you can like in the moment change over. It's like, oh, I need to set up the laptop gun to have a turret set up, and like which is the only way to do certain like multiplayer things against like the perfect bots, because the perfect bots would just like turn the corner and hit you like headshot right away.
Yeah.
So the only way to do it is like have turrets set up.
Yeah, like it was incredible because they put a mountain of weapons in this game, and I've always preferred like this game to me almost feels like the Nintendo 64 era Halo. Like with all the aliens and all the alien, like the weird weapons and stuff like that.
As long as you had to ban like the Farsight from use. Because that, I think out of any weapon, you'd be hard pressed to find a weapon that's more overpowered than the Farsight. Because the thing is, it can look through all walls, not even one, all of them. You can see the end of the map.
Right.
And shoot it, and it goes through the walls and kills in one shot.
Like, how is that fair? Like, in what world? Like, unless
why did they think that this is like, yes, this would be good. Although, you know what it is? I bet they're just like, look, we need to have a weapon that's just like a ridiculous weapon, and they can choose to put it in or not.
Right. And that's like, and to me, like when you get back to the multiplayer, like I mean, the more customization my multiplayer has, the more I'm into my multiplayer games. You know what I mean? Like I don't like, there is no such thing as too much customization, in my opinion, because you can just choose not to use it if you don't want. Like, I mean, I don't play a ton of Smash Brothers now, but you could literally tweak everything in Smash Brothers.
There's some people that like, I don't want any of those, bonuses coming in.
Right.
I just want to like play it clean kind of thing.
Right.
And then there's others that just like, no, it's just like mountains of it all the time, and everything's involved.
And with Perfect Dark, they were just like, okay, so not only are we going to put like a whole bunch of different modes in, where like you could play as teams, you can go against each other, as capture the flag, King of the Hill. You've got this. I remember there being one where you have like a briefcase, and you have to be the guy that holds on to the briefcase the longest.
It was. And you couldn't use a weapon while you had the briefcase.
Right, so you were just running away.
Yeah.
Like, and then there's levels, and then you can put in, like, you can tweak the weapons. You can put in how much damage the weapons do, I think. Like, I remember on GoldenEye, there was, like, one-shot kills and stuff like that. I have to imagine all that was in this game as well. Like,
but they went, like, specific in a lot of stuff.
Right, yeah. And I fucking love that. Like, Perfect Dark really feels like they took GoldenEye and wrote every little thing that was down that they did, like levels, weapons, enemies, multiplayer, and they were just like, okay, what is the absolute most we could do to expand this? Like, what is the absolute most we could do to expand this?
Yeah.
And that is fucking awesome. Like, because there's so much replay there. You know, like you said yourself, you only had one controller, but you can still play multiplayer if you want to. I think that was really cool.
That was, and yeah. Because once you play through the story, you've played through the story. Maybe you don't want to go through it again unless you want to unlock everything.
Right.
But aside from that, it was just great to be able to, I can just set up this thing and like try to push myself and try to like, go against harder and harder opponents.
And it's funny because like by today's standards, that mode sounds stupid because it's like, well, you can play online. You can play online anytime you want against anybody you want. Why would you play against the computer and do that?
Fair.
But like in 2000, that's all we could do.
You couldn't do that.
So that was really cool because and that's just the multiplayer. And I think most people when they think, well, I don't know. I'll ask you this. Like when I think of GoldenEye, the thing that jumps out to me most is multiplayer and playing with my buddies. When I think of Perfect Dark, the thing that jumps out to me is the campaign. Like I know multiplayer was great, but I remember the campaign more vividly than I remember the multiplayer. I don't know if everyone feels like that or if that's just me. I don't know.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think one of the reasons, as I said, is that multiplayer by myself, because it was like I could actually do that now. Or a lot more often.
Right.
But the campaign, there was definitely some... Like, that opening level I really liked. I liked that premise.
Dude,
It felt like a spy level kind of thing, which is really what I liked out of the Bond thing.
Yeah.
And Bond is a little bit more... Like, I like Mission Impossible. Not Bond style, like where Bond is kind of like more of like a mercenary that just goes in and blows everything up. There's not a lot of stealth in
right.
in those movies. Whereas Mission Impossible has at least a semblance of more sneaky stuff happening. And
I like that. Like, I mean, I wouldn't.
Perfect Dark does that. It felt like you could kind of sneak your way through the level.
Absolutely, yeah. I wouldn't necessarily call it like puzzle solving, but I like that when my campaign mode has like like if you want to play it stealth, you can. You got to go and you got to hack this computer. You got to go find this thing and then hack this computer. And if you want to, go in guns a-blazing, shoot your way through all of them and go hack the computer. But if you want to be cool and sneaky about it, like that's an option too, right?
I mean, you still have to shoot everything in this game, but it felt like there, at least in moments of the game, it felt like
it just breaks up the monotony of like just run, shoot, run, shoot, run, shoot, you know?
And I think the alien thing kind of bothered me. I think that was the thing that kind of stood out. Is like I really didn't like fighting the lizard guys later on, where it was like they weren't human. I liked fighting against humans with guns as opposed to like weird giants.
Yeah, like that's where I was like, that's what I was when you mentioned how much you liked the first level. Like, I mean, I love that when you're in that office building, and like I loved that setting. I thought that was so cool, and the way you could like see like the city like through. I mean, obviously the graphics weren't like they are now, but like you could see the city like at night through these giant windows, and you're running from boardroom to boardroom and elevators and stuff. And then like I remember there being levels near like. And I'll get more into like the replayability of this because there's a lot of replayability in the campaign if you want to do like all of the missions and all the highest difficulties and stuff. But I do remember like some of the later levels being like, there's one where you're in like an ice cave or you're in like a mountains or something. And then I remember, you're at like this like shrine of theirs or something, and it's like Aztec and like all these rocks and snow and shit like that. And I agree with you. I was like, I want to go back to the office building. Like I want to be the spy that's doing that stuff. Like that was more fun to me. Like
I didn't like it opening up. It's the same way I feel about. Have you ever heard of the game Thief?
I've heard of it. I never played it though.
The first Thief, I can't speak to the other ones because I was like, the first one's like a perfect stealth game.
Right.
Like the first level that you try out, and you're like, it's a medieval style thing, and there's like lighting and shadows and all kinds of. But later on, you're just like fighting like magical monsters and stuff like that. And I'm like, I kind of like the thing where you're sneaking around and you can play around with the like humans kind of thing.
Yeah. Sometimes it like. I don't know.
And that's why I like Hitman.
Right. I love the
Hitman. Is like, this is the game I've been really looking for.
Yeah, Hitman's rad. Yeah. I like this. Perfect Dark's not the only game that does it. And I wouldn't even say Perfect Dark does it more than others, but like there are games where like the first level or two are so like clever and in depth and you're like, this is like, let me play this. Like this is awesome. And then you finish the game or you get halfway through the game and then you realize that like the creativity maybe in some of the levels has disappeared and it's just turned into like basic go to the end, kill everybody, you're done. And it's like, or whatever, you know what I mean? And sometimes it almost feels like they had like these great aspirations. They designed the first level, they got their engine down and everything in the first level. They're like, okay, we got to do this like 12 more times. And then they realize like, we don't have the ideas, we don't have the budget or something. We don't have the time. We're like, okay, let's get the levels done, and then if we have time, we'll go back and add more creativity to them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I do feel like that kind of happens with this game. There's points where I'm like, this doesn't like. There's just not as much like kooky, clever stuff. I'm just kind of kill the aliens and go. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think that's always the big challenge in those kind of games where you have to move in towards, you have to create this alien culture and this alien world. Like, how does it work? Whereas like, that boardroom level, well, you know how like a boardroom or like how an office
we can all relate to that.
You can do that, so you can make it make sense,
right?
Whereas if you're like, okay, so what does an alien spaceship look like? I guess it probably has this.
I guess it's we all decide what it looks like, I suppose. So maybe it's just it becomes less relatable, maybe.
Yeah, and it's hard to think of how would this function.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess. I don't know. It just feels different. There's just something about it, I don't know. But
that's why a lot of alien designs often they like the ultra advanced stuff where it's just, there's very little displays and everything's super clean and everything just pops up and like. I think a part of it is just like it's hard to imagine something that's not human.
Right. I get that.
It's why aliens are often bipedal, or represented as they look vaguely like an animal that we know on Earth, or it looks vaguely like a human or whatever.
And then one thing I do love about it, and actually I think that this gets overlooked with Goldeneye. I don't mean to keep if you want a more in-depth review of Goldeneye. I think we did it in like episode 11 or 12. So go check that one out when you're done this. Yeah. But
I mean, it makes sense to compare this one to
you can't
that
not,
one.
right?
It's the same company, and it's also like same era.
Oh yeah, like it's hard not to. You know, it'd be like talking Tony Hawk 2 and not mentioning Tony Hawk 3. Like you have to bring them up. But one of the things that both these games do that I really like that I don't think enough people talk about is like in the campaign mode, the higher difficulty you play, like the more objectives you have.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas like if you played on the easiest difficulty, maybe your objective is like find this person, get them out of here, and that's it. And then in the later ones, it's like, oh, you also need to find this disc with evidence on it. Go hack this computer and shut down the alarm system.
It puts you into like rooms that are like objectively more difficult, or like you have to go into a part of the room where, oh man, people are going to see you. You can't.
Right. I mean, because it's one thing to just be like, well, it's the difficulties are easy, normal, or hard, and the harder it is, the more damage the bad guys do, and the more bad guys there are.
And how accurate there are.
Right. But then when you add in, like, you also have to go find more things and do more objectives. Like, not enough games do that, in my opinion. Like, I really. Yeah. Like, there's one thing to just make the difficulty harder, but like when you have to actually do more stuff to beat a level too, I think that's really, like, to me, that gives it replay. As opposed to just being like, okay, well, I beat it on normal, now I'll beat it on hard and it'll be harder. It's like, I want to play it on hard.
I'm doing the same beats or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
You're like, I want to play it on harder because I want to find the extra things and see like if there's more story here or something like that, even if I don't get the fucking story, which I don't. But
yeah. See, that's the one thing I barely remember this. I just remember it was like an alien conflict that came up, and honestly, as soon as they introduced like that they're lizards, that's when I'm like, oh, I'm disappointed. That was that was the heartbreak moment for me. I'm like, it's going to be like a weird Duke Nukem thing.
Yeah,
you know?
You're like, oh, this has turned into something completely different. Yeah.
And that's always the disappointment I find in any kind of like media, where you expect this one thing and then it goes off in this. Well, I didn't know that we're getting into aliens. And
they kind of tease you with one thing and then it becomes something different.
Because Perfect Dark, that opening level, the first initial splash of it is like, oh, this is a spy game.
Yeah.
And it's not after a while.
No, not at all. And like honestly, I would have like I have no problem with them involving like the gray aliens. Like if this company that you're like going in to deal with is maybe covering up the aliens or trying to use the aliens or something. And originally maybe you're like with them and then you realize like, oh, they're hurting the aliens and the aliens aren't bad. Let's go save. Because remember the alien. Yeah. I do remember the gray alien's name is Elvis.
Yes,
or you call him Elvis.
Right.
And it's so easy to like him. And you're like, well, I want to help Elvis. He's my friend. Like I like that story. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Another thing this game did was, and I forgot about this, you could go co-op in the campaign.
Yeah,
and
with your, I think it was like your sister or something like that.
Yeah, fuck, it didn't matter. Like just the fact that they were like, hey, you know what? There's gonna be a lot of people that want to play this together. Like we put a lot of work into this campaign. Let's let them play it 2-player. Like I mean,
actually, that's very true. Like that's a big advantage over Bond.
Huge advantage in my opinion.
Because I find that even now when there's a one-player game, you know, like I'm thinking of a shooter game, like a lot of, can you do like, you know, Call of Duty multiplayer?
Like I know Halo you can, and I know Gears of War you can. Like I know Gears of War is not first person, but not all of them. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I really prefer, like my fondest memories of Halo, like of the first Halo, aren't the multiplayer. As fun as multiplayer was, it was trying to beat the campaign on Legendary with my friends. Like that was like, I was like, dude, when you're on the same team together and you're just trying to kill all these badass aliens and stuff, that just becomes more fun. Yeah. And so to put a 2-player campaign into this at a time where that wasn't a completely normal thing, and they certainly didn't have to do it
in a shooter,
exactly,
specifically.
Yeah. And I
don't even know if PC games did it at that time. Maybe they did.
I don't like Doom and stuff wasn't 2-player campaigns, right? That's really like. Again, that to me feels like they literally just took every aspect of their first game and were like, how can we just put more meat on this bone?
Yeah.
And they're like, let's make it 2-player. And I think, I don't know, but I think you could play it 1-player with a computer-controlled ally if you wanted to. I don't remember, though.
I don't know about that.
So if I'm wrong, then don't fucking yell at me. Oh, yeah, okay, I just looked right here. The campaign includes a cooperative mode, allowing 2 players or 1 player and up to 4 controlled bots to tackle a level together.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Like, there's so much depth in this. Yeah. Like, that's fucking really cool, you know?
Yeah.
And then you mentioned the weapons. The weapons in this game, not only are the weapons rad.
Like, I'm looking at the list here. I pulled up the list, and it's like... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There is, like, 30 to 40 weapons in this. It looks like,
and every weapon has a alternate mode.
Yes,
and I love that because some of the alternate modes are as simple as like, well, instead of shooting like, a bullet at a time, maybe it shoots like a spray, but it takes more ammo. Like, they're just more powerful weapons.
And then later on, there's like some wild stuff you get.
Isn't there like some that are like night vision or something?
Yeah.
And like you can hack computers with some, or like find like alarms with them and stuff. Like,
yeah, there's the one of the wild ones. I just saw it here. The psychosis gun, where it's just like you shoot it at a guy and makes the guy go nuts, and he just starts attacking the nearest person.
Like, that's so cool. Like, because that's a great way to double up the amount of weapons you have in a way without actually having to design twice as many weapons, right? And just the fact, like you said, there was almost 40 weapons. Like, just that, if there was no alternative weapons on each one, but there were 40 weapons, you'd be like, well, there's lots of fun ways to play this. But they were like, not only is there all these weapons, but we'll put like extra modes into a bunch of them too.
Yeah.
And that's really rad. You know what I mean? Like, good for them. Like, I really, really like it when a game developer like does the extra work to be like, you know what, we're gonna make sure you get your money's worth. If you give us your $80 or whatever, I don't even remember what these games were worth.
It's not like the NHL series where they just like,
oh fuck,
they've already figured it out and like, well, there's nothing else we can really do, so skating's mildly different,
buddy. Like I
with updated rosters, that's what we're doing, is updated rosters, and they could have probably done that. They could have put it, and if anything, I feel if they would have done another James Bond game, I think it would have fallen into that.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they wouldn't need to do anything more. They could just lie on the IP. But because they're like, hey, we can do anything if it's our own.
Yeah.
So let's look at... we'll make wild weapons and... Yeah.
And I think part of their logic was probably, too, like, if we create this brand new IP and this thing takes off like Goldeneye did, like, we're like I've never made a video game, but I have to assume that every game developer would love to stumble upon a new IP they've invented that just takes off. And now you've got a license, like, I mean, like when Naughty Dog started making the Uncharted games, and then the Uncharted games blew up, and they were like, holy fuck, like, or like the Assassin's Creed games, and like, well, now we've got a license to print money. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that they were like hoping, like, hey, if Perfect Dark takes off, like, we've got this cool new world, we got aliens we can play with, we can add in new characters, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it kind of sucks because they never really did anything else with it. They did that crappy 360 game. It was almost like a launch title for the 360, and it got just I bought it, and I was like, this sucks. Like, it was not good. And then, like, I think it's basically dead. Like, I mean, they re-released this one on Xbox Live and on the Rare Replay disc, but like, what else are they doing with Perfect Dark? Like, it's pretty well gone.
I think a part of it is people think of it as the Goldeneye clone, like, oh, it was the one that, I guess it was the knockoff Goldeneye, as opposed to it's standing on its own. It didn't help that as we've been talking about, it's not like the story redeemed it. Like, it like makes it stand out on its own. Like, it was just a really great shooter, and like other shooters have come along since, and like, I don't know if there's, I wonder if you could do another Perfect Dark.
Because I was like, when you said that, I was like, you know what, like, if there is an overcrowded genre in video games, it's probably first person shooters. Like, well, maybe now it's open world sandbox fucking games.
Which is just everywhere now.
But like, in the era of the Halos, the Call of Duties, the Battlefields, all those, I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, you know what, if you tried to launch this brand new IP, because it would almost be a brand new IP to gamers today, like the kids today, and you're
and the ones that are popular are like, Overwatch and Fortnite, which are kind of like on two opposite ends of the same thing of, well, no, they're both cartoony. Like, in Perfect Dark is like in a realm of cartooniness to a certain degree. Because it's got that high sci-fi element to it, and it's got that...
I don't know. I don't know if it would work today. And it's a lot of money to spend and then be like, it didn't work. Nobody wants it. Like, and that's got to be a big concern of game developers today, is you're just like, fuck, if we take a chance on something and it doesn't work, like, it's 8, 9, I have no idea. I assume 8, 9 figure money that you're out for this game that didn't work, and you're like, well, now what do we fucking do? Do you know what I mean? Because now we're stuck with this game, right? And I think when that original, I don't remember the name of it, Perfect Dark Zero or something, but it was whatever one came out with the Xbox 360 when it launched. When that one panned, I think they were probably like, all right, like, good enough.
Yeah.
good enough. But this game,
yeah, because at that point when it was the 360, that was like 2 generations after.
Yeah.
And so it's like when 3D graphics are like looking really sharp and really good, and that was one of the first shooters to come out.
Yep.
And it's like, well, if that one didn't work, like, what other scenario is it going to work?
And at that point, you have to remember, too, like, you're not only is it, like you're dealing with Halo, right? And you got to remember, like, I know people, like, Halo's not what it was, but in the original Xbox and then the Xbox 360 era, Halo was, like, the undisputed king of shooters, especially on the Xbox. So how do you bring in your other IP of a shooter on the Xbox and be like, we're as good as Halo?
And that's the thing too, is like Halo's a great example of like, because a lot of those weapons had kind of multi modes.
You can like tweak with them and stuff.
And you can have the co-op campaign, and you can. The innovations that were introduced by Perfect Dark were kind of like, well, now that they're in the DNA of Halo, that's I guess the real question is, can you make another Halo?
That's it, right? And they're probably like, no, we probably can't. Yeah. So, dude, I don't know. I know we didn't get too into the detail on the plot and stuff like that, but I'm telling you guys, like when I was getting ready for this episode, I went to the Wikipedia page and just read a little bit about the game. You can read the plot on the Wikipedia page. I promise you, unless you know this game like the back of your hand, you're gonna read it. It's 4 or 5 paragraphs, and you're gonna be like, "What?"
That was what it was. Like I was so disappointed in the story.
Yeah,
and even how it affected the levels. Like that's the big weak point to Perfect Dark. And probably one of the reasons why it's not a classic.
Yeah,
or like a classic in the same realm as Goldeneye.
Yeah, it's right on the because the review, like everyone knows the reviews for Perfect Dark are great. You know what I mean? Like when I'm looking at them right now, it's like 98, A+, 100, 96. Like the reviews are all phenomenal. But this game just does not have the legendary status that Goldeneye has. And I think part of it's because Goldeneye came first. Yeah. And did it first, and we all love the multiplayer of GoldenEye and stuff like that.
And that's a big thing. Like the thing that when you do something new and creative, that's an important thing to making those things survive. That's why Mario is still making new games. And like why you could probably make a new Sonic, even though that one's just a trash fire. Like I think there's probably a way you can resurrect Sonic, but Perfect Dark has the thing of like, it was not the first to do it.
Yeah.
To
me, Perfect Dark carries the distinct, to me, like when I think of like the end of the Nintendo 64, because like in almost every console's lifespan, like the last couple of games that come out on it are usually amongst, if not the best. It's just that they get forgotten about sometimes because people have moved on to the new games. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, that didn't happen. Like the one that, like, to me, the best swan song for a console maybe ever, and people are going to yell at me if they don't agree, but I always think of The Last of Us on PS3 because I think The Last of Us is an absolute masterpiece of a video game, and it didn't get forgotten about.
Yeah,
but it was like right near the end, and people were talking PS4 and stuff like that, and that happens to games sometimes. Yeah. And with the Nintendo 64, there's 2 games that jump out at me like that, and one is Perfect Dark, and the other one is Paper Mario, which are both great games that just kind of. Everyone that played them adores them, right? Like anyone listening to this episode that grew up with Perfect Dark is like, dude, Perfect Dark is awesome. Like they all think it's awesome, but it just doesn't have that legacy spot because it was just near the end. It's not part of the like why the Nintendo 64 grew into what it was. It was the like swan song. This is the best thing the Nintendo 64 could do. You know what I mean?
It was like the crown jewel on the thing, but that in and of itself is not. It does depend on like the first impressions of a system.
Yeah.
Because like when a new system comes out, there's not a lot of games, right? So GoldenEye was one of the few that came out.
Right.
It's you own that or Mario.
Yeah.
And Mario 64 is the other major game that people remember. And that initial impression and everybody having it.
Yeah.
When it's at the end of the system, then it's like, well, everybody has there's access to hundreds of games, and this is just going to be one on top of that, so it's not widespread.
Yeah.
And especially if you throw in you need the expansion pack, which was only for like 3 or 4 games.
Yeah. Classic peripheral, right? That just didn't do enough. Like it came out near the end, and it just didn't do enough. Like people weren't going to spend the money on it, but. I don't know. I mean, Perfect Dark is rad. It deserves its place. Like back when the Nintendo 64.
If I'm going to play if I had the choice between GoldenEye and Perfect Dark right now, back in the old system, I'm going to choose Perfect Dark.
Me too. Yeah, 100%. And I think a lot of, unless you've got that like ultimate sentimental attachment to GoldenEye, most people that played both would choose the latter as well. They'd choose Perfect Dark. Like when you talk about when all the hype was about the Nintendo 64 Mini and everyone thought a 64 Classic was coming and stuff, this was one of the games that everyone was like, well, yeah, you got to have, like there's the Marios, the sports games, and then there's GoldenEye and Perfect Dark. You know what I mean? And quite frankly, guys, listen, if a Nintendo 64 Mini ever happens, and I'm not sold it does, but if it ever does happen, you're not getting GoldenEye.
No.
But you probably will get Perfect Dark because Rare and Nintendo, Rare's owned by Microsoft now, but Microsoft and Nintendo are buddies now. Like Banjo-Kazooie is a Rare IP that just found his way into, they just got into Smash Brothers. And Cuphead is an Xbox exclusive that just found its way onto Nintendo. Switch, and there's been all this talk about Xbox Live coming to Nintendo Switch. I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but there's been rumors about it forever.
I think because isn't Xbox like trying to get out of the console thing?
I don't know. I thought they should, but I mean they're announcing stuff for a new system, so I don't know. But the thing is they're fucked. Like they can't beat PlayStation, and Nintendo's got their own thing going. Like I wish they would. I would love to just see Xbox and Nintendo team up. I've ranted about that on here before. And this is one of those games, like I have no doubt in my mind if Nintendo 64 games come to Nintendo Switch, like with their online service, I bet you this game shows up. Because they can put it on there. They can be like, you know what? And here, by the way, here's the Xbox 360 controls where it handles a little bit better and stuff like that.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yes, it would you could do the move and look.
Because I played it on my 360 again 7-8 years ago and found it perfectly playable. I was like, this just handles like a regular third person or first person shooter. And I think if you picked up one of those Nintendo 64 controllers, like that controller has aged as terribly as any controller in gaming history.
Because there's only one way you used it. It was like your left hand on the middle, and then your right hand up. You rarely there was rarely any reason for your left hand to go up to the D-pad.
I love that controller because it's got its place in gaming history, right? Yeah. We all love it, but the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo controllers, the NES, SNES, those both still handle great. Yeah. And to Sony's credit, the PlayStation, I mean, that controller's barely changed over 4 generations.
Yeah, it's gotten slightly bigger,
right?
Yeah,
and quite frankly, it might. Probably is the best controller design ever. Like those controllers are really good. I love the Xbox 360 controller. Yeah. I can live with the Xbox controller, not the giant one, but the little one.
Yeah.
I love the GameCube controller so much. But the fucking Nintendo 64 3-pronged weirdo thing was cool at the time. But now it's like, what the fuck is this?
Was it cool at the time?
I don't even know if it was. Yeah. Maybe it was just we had no choice but to use it. Maybe that's all it was.
I think it was handy because it was like that whole idea of the joystick and the gun. Like it was giving for that shooter kind of thing.
I can't imagine trying to play a first-person shooter now with a analog stick and then 4 buttons that are arrows. And that's how you should fuck off. What the fuck? What is this? That doesn't work. But this game was good for its time. Before we score this thing, have you got any last thoughts, criticisms of Perfect Dark? And for the record, while he's thinking, if you listen to this and you're like, oh, you forgot to mention, I don't know, I want to say there was a way you could play multiplayer in the campaign where one person controlled bad guys and one controlled good guys.
Yes.
I forgot all about that. I was like, I don't want to catch shit from someone that's like, you forgot to mention this favorite part of my game. Because I do get messages like that sometimes.
Fair.
I try. It's all off the top of our head. If you want an in-depth, thorough review, go listen to Retro Nuts with that fucking idiot Bob Mackey and that fucking super anal research podcast they do, which is fine, but don't listen to them instead of us. Listen to them in addition to us. But this is supposed to be 2 people remembering these games, not 2 people doing fuck. I have no time to do that kind of homework. So don't yell at me anymore, okay?
That was a good mode, especially if the really good players, the bad guys, because you just kind of like, yeah, I have 2 hits on me, but guess I don't need them.
Yeah, and the best part was whenever you died, you could just take over another bad guy. You just kept playing, right?
I'm coming for you.
And that's another thing.
I'm going to kill you in that first room. I'm going to come at you.
Imagine that doesn't even happen now. That rarely happens in games today, where one person could just play as the bad guys, and
that's something that
to fucking think to do that in 2000, good for you, good for Rare, dude, Rare. The
other thing that I remember now too is in the weapons that were one-handed weapons, you can actually have two different weapons in your left and right hand.
You could two fist, yeah.
So it's not just like double pistols. It could be a pistol and like one of the submachine guns.
Yeah.
And like
so many combinations with so many weapons, and all the weapons have these weird so much depth. Okay, before we score this, I don't talk like the state of society, politics, any of that stuff on this podcast at all. Frankly, I don't even care about most of that stuff. But I think another thing that this game deserves a lot of credit for was like in an era where there were very few female protagonists in video games, this game not only made because it could have been so easy to just make a James Bond spoof and make that be the main character, but they were like, no, we're gonna make it a female, and not only is it a female, but she is a fucking badass, right? Like, I have no idea. I have to assume that at least one of the Tomb Raider games came out before this, so like Lara Croft was already around. But I think that's a cool thing that just like in today's society, like there's all kinds of games where the main character is a female, right? But like back then there wasn't.
There wasn't.
And I just, another minor little thing, just I really think that's a cool touch. I don't know if that was like a statement by them, if that was obviously it was a conscious decision. I don't know why they made that decision, but I like it.
I also like that she was not a female that was so hardcore that like she has no emotion at all. Like she was kind of a still well-rounded. There's something about like those action heroes that are so emotionless and like I don't feel anything. I'm just gonna blow through things. It's like you gotta have. It's nice when people have feelings and
like she was human.
She's a human, and so she had compassion for Elvis and like
And honestly, I wonder if maybe that's maybe they just thought that compassion angle and this Elvis working with Elvis and stuff. Maybe they're like, it works better with a female protagonist. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. All I know is like it's cool. I think it's cool that they did it. Frankly, I don't.
Unique character. Yeah,
absolutely. I don't spend a ton of time thinking about if my the character I'm controlling is a male or a female. Like, I just want to play. I don't even really care. But I just thought of that. And I'm like, it's cool.
I think it's an important thing to have like that variety for sure.
It's rad that they did it, and it's rad that they did it before it was like a normal thing to do. Do you know what I mean?
Or like it kind of like you're getting on the bandwagon. Yeah, like, oh, we have to do this.
Are you just doing it now because that's how society works, and you feel like they were just like, they could have absolutely just made this a fucking ripoff of James Bond and it would have been fine. But no, they invented this new character. She's awesome. I think she's dead because the franchise is dead. It's not doing anything. But she had a good run, and she saved Elvis. So
that was the big thing. Yeah.
Okay, so let's score this thing. So if we think I'm trying to use different scoring scales now. So if we figure there's 40 weapons in this game, give or take, on a scale of 1 to 40 alien destroying weapons, how many weapons would you give Perfect Dark?
Out of a 40, I think for a game in its day, I think it was, probably around 37. Sure,
that's a good score.
If I was to even play it now, I think it would still, especially for the multiplayer, I think it would still like be like a good 30. I think I would play this just as much as I would Call of Duty.
Totally. Yeah. I'll go.
Oops, sorry.
It's okay. You just kicked the table. My dog's freaking out. It's okay, buddy. I'll go like 30, 34, 35. It like, even if you take the slowdown, you take the weird controls, obviously the graphics aren't going to look as good as they did back then.
I'm talking multiplayer.
Absolutely.
First player. This campaign, I wouldn't bother.
Then you throw in all of the extra things they put into this game that some games still don't have today, even with all their technical advantages and stuff. Like Rare deserves credit for Goldeneye and what it did on the Nintendo 64, but I think Rare deserves more credit for this game and how they didn't cheap out. They fucking swung for the fences and created a really cool game.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man. I like Perfect Dark. This game's rad. So go. I mean, I'd say go play it. But I guess you can.
I don't know. Can you get it still?
It's on Rare Replay. So if you've got an Xbox One, you can play it. Okay. But so for the 5 of you that have an Xbox One, go play Rare Replay and play Last of Us, Perfect Dark. And for everybody else, maybe someday it'll show up on the Nintendo. I bet you it will. Turok just came to the Nintendo Switch.
Okay.
So I bet you this game shows up on Nintendo Switch at some point. And when it does, we'll all be like, oh my God, it's too expensive. And then we'll all buy it and play it anyway. So that's what's going to happen. David, thanks for doing this, buddy. Good job. That was a good podcast. I like it. And that's going to do it for this week's episode. David, thank you so much for coming over and talking Perfect Dark with me. To all my guests over the last year that have taken time to come over to my house or call me or whatever and talk video games with me, thank you so much. And just as, if not more importantly, thank you to every single one of you beautiful people that are out there listening to this show. I really appreciate it, you guys. 2020 is going to be our year. We're going to crack episode 100 at some point. We're going to hit 50,000 downloads at some point, maybe before episode 100. That's where I'm hoping for. And we're just going to keep going onward and upward. So thanks for listening, guys. Follow us on social media if you can, at Remember the Game. Support us over at patreon.com/Remember the Game if you want bonus episodes. Check out Wrestling with Wrestling this Friday. I'll be posting about it on all the social media feeds, and I'll be back in 7 days with episode 79 of Remember the Game. Go play some video games. I'll talk to you guys later. Take it easy. Cheers.